In the past 2 to 3 years, our world has experienced unprecedented change. Some people seem to effortlessly bounce back, embracing the winds of change, while others struggle to find their footing. Have you ever wondered how some people can adapt and thrive amidst uncertainty? Today, we invite you on a journey of hope and curiosity, exploring some strategies to navigate change. Join our workshop as we unravel some insights into how some embrace change, and discover how you too can develop the resilience to thrive in the face of uncertainty.
Welcome to today's workshop. My name is Ewan. I'll be your host and your facilitator for the next couple of hours. All right? And for those who don't know me, who have not been to my workshops before, just a little background about myself. Okay? I'm a practicing career coach, and this is my 8th year having my own practice as well. And actually, when I am helping job seekers and people who are very focused on their careers, one of the most common thing that I have to help these people with, first of all, is how we do this, coping with change. Okay, because we all undergo change, and so this is one of the things that we need to be able to cope with first before we actually proceed on to the next step. Now, apart from this workshop itself, I actually also conduct other workshops for WSG, like the ones that you see here. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in attending any future workshops, please stay tuned. Towards the end of the session, I will be sharing the schedule with you. Okay. At the same time, I am also actually someone who trains other people to become career coaches. Right? So again, if you're interested in knowing more about this, I've got more information towards the end of the session itself. Now, the last time I did this particular workshop was actually about September of last year. And I do this workshop, this topic, every few months actually. Now, every time I do this, it is actually a very personal journey for me. Okay? Because when I go through all the material and the techniques I'm going to share with you, it actually reminds me of the changes, both positive and negative, that I myself had to go through. Right? So whatever I'm going to share with you today is basically a culmination of all the things that I have gone through myself, and I've used to be able to allow me to cope with change, and I've actually used those actually to help others to cope with change as well. Okay. Now, you may be interested in this. When I train other people to become career coaches, one of the exercises I get the career coaches to do is to actually write out a little novel about what their life would look like if they were to put it down in a book. Okay, so this is my novel, all right, where the first few chapters were basically things that I had to work through, right? A lot of negative impacts. So, my childhood, then in terms of education, I didn't do well in school in the initial period. But then later on, I found a way to bust through and actually proceed on to new experiences and new careers, and actually education-wise as well, all right? And then if I looked at subsequent chapters in my book, all right, I would go on to describe how I rode the waves, the drama waves of my own life as well as my own career. And then the final chapter, which, hopefully it's not the final chapter, but the last chapter that I write is really how I regain control and regain the sense of purpose. So hopefully, you will get a sense of that as well today, and then we can proceed from there. Okay? All right. Let's talk about change. Let's talk about change on a global scale first, and then we go and zoom in down to what you would possibly be facing. Okay, so firstly, I think we all know this big change, right? The pandemic started a couple of years ago. I won't say it's over, but we are still feeling the impact of it. Okay, and typically, if you look at, a lot of people have written about, how it's affected them. I'm sure all of you would have some sense of how it affects you as well. But essentially, if you look at it, okay, some of the things that happened to us as a result of this was the things like working from home, right? Every one of us probably have gone through that experience. And then as far as businesses were concerned, most businesses, if not all, had to work a way to try and go online to be able to survive. Okay, so that's what happened during the pandemic. Okay, but at the same time also, the pandemic also forced a change in the hiring process. Right? A lot of stuff was done remotely. We began to look for, or companies began to look for talent not only locally but overseas. People learned to use digital skills to expand their horizon or extend their reach to other countries as well. Okay, so again, pandemic wise, there's both positive and negative. Yeah. The next one, which is a bit more recent, is really all the economic uncertainty that was expressed when US and China went head to head, or is going head to head right now, and also the war in Ukraine. Okay, all this has created a lot of uncertainty, which means what? For companies, they had to change their priorities. Okay, instead of focusing on one particular area, they may have to build in contingencies. Right? And for the people working in the companies, in businesses, people like yourselves, now we have to make sure we are adaptable. We have to make sure we develop internal resilience to be able to cope with the uncertainty. Now, what about this one? Cyber security. Now, over the last few years, we probably have all seen this thing about, scams, online scams, people data breaching, our data being released. All this is cybersecurity, all right? And basically what this has resulted in is many companies looking into this aspect, and many people actually going into learning new skills to be able to upgrade themselves. In fact, my own son, okay, he did a degree in cybersecurity, okay, and so now he's in that area because he believes, and I believe with him, that this area is going to grow and is growing. Okay, now the next one, I'm sure all of you have heard about this, and it's something that's hot topic over the last 6 to 7 months or so. Okay, is this notion of artificial intelligence. All right, and all started the ball rolling with ChatGPT. Okay, and basically a lot of people were afraid that what, they would lose their jobs because of this rise of artificial intelligence. So you have visions of Skynet coming in and taking over the world, taking over the jobs and all. Possibly, I won't rule it out, okay? But at the moment, what I would prefer us to look at artificial intelligence is a way to allow us to be more productive and more creative. Okay? And in fact, I don't know if you're going to see this through today's session, and in fact, I started using this over the last couple of sessions, is that I'm actually using AI in the way I'm sharing my workshop information with you. Okay, so AI can be both positive, but I would rather can be negative, but I would rather look at it on the positive aspect. All right. So now, if there was one question that was asked by someone, and I thought I want to share the answer with you today. Okay, there was this question of whether any of the changes, how do you know they are a fad, which means temporary, or they are a trend, which means it is long term and forever ingrained in the way we look at things. All right, so I'm going to use these two as an example of whether it's a trend or a fad. Okay, now, as with any good researcher, right, I went to ChatGPT and asked this question: how do we know when change is a fad or something more permanent? Okay, and this is what ChatGPT gave to me. Maybe you agree, maybe you're not, but I think it's actually very interesting, the answer. Okay, firstly, it says that it all depends on whether this change has garnered strong interest, and the interest is sustained and is long. Okay, so if you look at it, whether any of these or anything else has been growing, the interest is growing tremendously and is still going strong. Okay, the other thing that ChatGPT told us was, how about looking at how deep the change is? How has it impacted society? Is it all pervasive, or is only a very shallow impact on society? Okay. Then it tells us, have people adopted to the change? Have people absorbed this change into the way they do things? Okay, have they, like for example, in this case, have companies actually adopted AI into the way they do things? Have individuals adopted the use of cybersecurity or AI into the way they look at things and the way they gather information? Right? And lastly, it is about evidence, evidence and observation. If we take a look at it, do we see a lot of things happening in the world today that is actually leveraging on the change that we are looking at? You know, are a lot of people looking at using ChatGPT or AI as part of their work? Is it something that and a lot of people are building onto it, like building blocks? Okay, or is it just that thing is standing on its own and it's not doing anything else, but it's just being isolated? Okay. And lastly, it is about whether this has impacted on our behavior and our culture. Now, if I look at these two things, all right, cybersecurity and AI, if I use all these items as indexes of the way we look at things, it seems pretty clear to me that it is probably a trend. It is probably something that is going to be here for long term. It is not a fad. It is not like bell-bottom pants. Those of you who are old enough remember bell-bottom pants, okay? So that was a fad, right? After a while, it went away. I remember the times where I was wearing bell-bottom pants in my school days when I was wearing school long pants, okay? Now the other one was, how about, have you heard of NFT? NFT. It was all the rage, I think, last year. Now we hardly hear anything about NFT. Why? Could it be because it's something that's gone away? You know, it hasn't impacted many people, right? There wasn't a lot of adoption to it, although many people use it as a way to earn money, but it seems to have gone away for now. So maybe NFTs can fall under the notion of fad. Okay, so these are the things that could help you determine when something is happening to you, whether it's locally or globally, whether it is affecting you on a permanent or a temporary basis. Okay, now now that those were the global impacts, the global changes that's happening now. All right, so the next thing I want to sort of ask from you guys, what is the nature of change that you are undergoing right now? Okay, can you type into the chat box, what is the nature of change that you are undergoing right now? Type it into the chat box. Now, for me personally, my biggest change over the last 6 months was actually my eyes. Okay, I had to go for surgery for detached retina, right? And so that's affected my right eye here, and I can't see very well. That's why I'm wearing glasses. Normally, I don't wear glasses. Okay, and I know that I have to follow on to do cataract surgery as well. So, what about you guys? What are some of the changes you are experiencing right now? Can you type into the chat box? What are some of the changes you are experiencing right now? Anyone? Okay, change in lifestyle. Okay, anybody else? Succession planning. All right. Health issue, need to relook for career path. Understand that. What else is there? Any other changes that y'all can share? Job security. Okay, industry affected by AI. Okay, emotion and self-confidence, financial crisis. Understand, and I think those are really big changes, and I can empathize with you because at some point I think all of us go through that as well. Okay, now one thing I want to sort of illustrate here, when I ask you what changes are you undergoing, almost all of you indicated negative changes, right? You put down all negative changes. But do you know that actually there are some changes that are positive as well? Okay? So hopefully by the end of today, right, when I go through with you all the techniques, you'll be able to see that out of every negative, there's actually a possibility of a positive change as well. Okay? So hopefully you can see that. All right? But whatever is the case may be, I'm sure you'll agree, yeah, that a change is a disruption to the way we do things, right? It disrupts the flow, the normality of our lives and the way we normally go about doing certain things. So it disrupts the flow. Okay, so whether good or bad, it disrupts the flow. Okay, and in my line of work, most of the people that come to me, all right, are people who are wanting to embark on a career switch, because I specialize in this. Okay, and really, for people who are embarking or wanting to look at a career switch, at the end of the day, it is really about confidence. It is about confidence in being able to take the next step to go and do what you need to do in order to exercise that change in your career path. Okay, now I'm not going to talk about career switching much today, all right? But what I'm going to share with you are basically the framework, the techniques that allow you to frame your mindset in order for you to push ahead with something like a career change or something else. Okay, now, next question I'm going to ask you is this, when we are faced with change and we need to do something about it, what is stopping you from doing something about that thing that has impacted you? Can you type into the chat box, what is stopping you from doing something about that change that has impacted you? Anxiety, someone said. Okay, any uncertainty, lack of confidence, fear, right? Fear again, another person has said fear. So, quite a few people have said fear. Focus, you don't know where to do. Thank you so much. Essentially, if I look at it, it's really about control, right? Have a sense of you don't know what you can control. You fear that you've lost something. There's some uncertainty about the outcome. And really, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you are fearful. Totally understandable. But the question here is, how then do we react to the changes? Right? Are you someone who always bites nervously on their nails or the ends of the pencil, anticipating the worst to come? Right? Or are you someone who's oblivious to the world around you, and suddenly when the change hits you like a wet fish, then you suddenly realize, oh, I better do something about it? Okay? I hope by end of today, you will be like this particular puppy, right? Where no matter what changes come, right, you are cool, calm, and collected, right? You know how to cope with it. You know how to develop the next step to be able to action and mitigate the impact, the negative impact of change. Okay? Now, today I'm actually quite excited because I'm going to have two guests coming on to share their experiences with you. Okay, one of them is David, right, and the other one is Mr. Tan. Okay, David, for all of you, would be someone who is similarly going through this particular workshop, right? And Mr. Tan would be someone who has actually gone through the whole process of managing the change. And in fact, Mr. Tan was an ex-client of mine, right? And he kindly gave me permission to share his output with you guys as well. So let's hear from David first and understand where David is coming from. All right?
Hello everyone. I'm David. A few months ago, my company underwent a major digital transformation. It was a challenging time as we had to adapt to new technologies and workflows. Now my company wants to use AI more, and I'm worried about losing my job. I'm hoping this workshop will help me look at how I can cope with so many changes happening now.
Okay. Thank you, David. So, David is undergoing some fear and uncertainty because he thinks that his job will be affected by AI and the fact that his company is going head on into that. I saw in the comments just now that someone or a couple of you also had a similar concern. Okay? So if you do, right, follow on with David to see how he is reacting to the techniques that I'm going to share with you over the next couple of hours. Okay? All right. Okay, so what we're going to cover over the next couple of hours is basically divided into two sections. Okay, the first one will be here, how we prepare for the changes that's coming on board. Right? So, like this guy, you build up muscles to cope with the change. Then the other section will be how we cope with a change that's already happening to you or has already happened. Okay, now they are not two separate things, but they are interrelated. Okay, obviously the ideal here is that you are able to develop this first so that it will help you with this. Okay, but you can see now, for those of you who are still trying to learn how to prepare, you can still deal with this first. Okay, now as you can have you can guess, much of what I'm going to share with you essentially relies on the thing between your ears. Okay, it's basically how you look at the events surrounding you, how you look at yourself. So essentially, hopefully one of the learning takeaways for today for you will be to have the right way of thinking to how you can embrace the changes that's impacting you. Okay, how then you can evaluate the changes and understand its impact, right? Anticipate future change. Isn't that really important for you to know that, hey, I can see something coming down the line? Okay, and then lastly, to be able to develop coping strategies and techniques when you are faced with certain changes. Is that okay? All right, so those are the 4 learning takeaways that I hope that you will get at the end of today. All right, okay, let's do the first part. Okay, the first part will be how we prepare for change. How we prepare for change. And basically, I'm going to deal with these 3 topics: how we embrace change, how we prioritize, and how we garner support or develop a support structure. Okay, so let's talk about the first topic first: embracing change. Now, have you heard this comment? Many people say Singaporeans are very comfortable. Singapore is a very easy country to live in. Do you agree with this? I think we should agree with this, right? Because in a sense, we all are having a good life here. Everything is comfortable. Even though climate, okay, now maybe we got hot weather and then sometimes rain, but we don't have typhoon, we don't have hurricanes and all, we don't have earthquakes. So in a sense that we are pretty comfortable. We live a very structured life, right? And therefore that sometimes affects the way we look at certain things. I don't know how, because for me personally, when I went into a country just a few years ago, I went to a certain country and I experienced earthquake personally. I was at a shock. I didn't know what to do. Okay, but then I see the people around them, they all went about their business, they had a procedure, they knew what to do, they were very confident and comfortable about it. Right? But me, as someone who has not experienced something like this, right, in my comfort zone, right, I didn't know how to sort of adapt to those impact that sort of affected me that time. Okay, so the question here is this: what does it take for us to reach out to stretch zone and beyond to the growth zone? Okay, or what's stopping us? What's stopping us from reaching and stretching ourselves beyond our comfort zone? If I ask you that question, and I ask many people that question, right, the underlying factor that's preventing people from stretching, from going beyond the comfort zone, is essentially the fear of failure. It's a fear of failure. Because many people dare not try. Right? And if you're one of them, it's fine, because it's a natural instinct. Okay? But let's twist it around. FAIL. I think you ask any school kids now, the acronym for FAIL. I'm sure any school kid will know what this is. I'm sure they teach this in school. Okay? Do you know what FAIL, what acronym does it stand for? Right? If you don't know, ask your kids, but I'm going to share this with you now. It's basically a first attempt in learning. Okay? So fail, or if you flip it around, it is a learning process. Imagine if this guy, Thomas Edison, didn't try and try and try again. Rumors said that he had almost 10,000 ways of trying. We would not have a lights in a house right now. Okay, so his perseverance, his willingness to try and try and try until he found a way. Okay, and imagine if he was saying after first few tries, give up lah, everything I try I cannot do. What will happen to us now? Where would we be living now? in what sort of environment we will be living in today. Okay, so if you look at it, change really presents to us a lot of opportunities. Okay, so that's the first thing I think we all need to understand this. Whatever negative change that comes up, we have to look at understanding whether there are opportunities for us or not. Because opportunities for what? Opportunities to grow. Okay, you won't grow unless you fail. You know the saying, or it's a paraphrase of that saying, huh? Whenever you fail at something, you're actually growing. Okay, and I'm sure you all know this notion of a growth mindset, right? I think it's all been said, and you know, you Google it, you can understand it. So I'm not going to go through with you how to achieve a growth mindset. In fact, those of you who are sort of very sort of IT savvy or like to use apps, there are a lot of apps out there that actually help you develop a growth mindset. This is just one of them, Rocky.ai. Those of you who want to go and try, okay, you can download it. It's free. A lot of it is free, although there's a level that's payable, right? But a lot of it is free, and then you know, some people have said it's actually quite useful. So if you want, you can give it a try. All right. So this is like maybe the modern way, the younger way that younger people would like to use. Now, for me, when I work with my clients, right, when I try to get them to embrace what's happening with them, okay, I basically follow a simple technique. Something maybe you can do right now, okay, or you can do it after today's workshop. Okay, it is basically looking at listing down, call it a journal if you will. Okay, list down any negative change or experiences you've had recently. Okay, list this down. Then look at it in a different way. Are there any positive learning outcomes as a result of that change or that negative experience? Okay, sometimes it's not easy, but give it a try. You know, like we said, every negative, there's always a positive, right? Every coin, there's always two sides to a coin, right? So let's take the example of David. Okay, so David, like you, will be undergoing this exercise. Okay, so David's negative experience, he just described it to you just now, right? He was undergoing some concerns. What are negative experiences? Okay, he has some difficulty in adapting to the new company processes and demands on his role. Right? He's also worried that there are some new AI tools, and those tools will replace his job. He's an accountant. So he's worried that those AI tools will replace his job. So he's very worried. Now, you guys now, help David. Out of this negative experiences that he's undergoing now, what positive learning experiences do you think he can gather from this? Can you type into the chat box? What positive things do you think David could get as even after experiencing this situation? Type into the chat box. Help David. What do you guys think? Anyone? Just type into the chat box what do you think David can experience in the negative. Yeah? Okay, learning new digital skills. Any other positive points that David can adapt? Anybody else? Networking. Okay, he has a chance to learn new skills. Yeah. Any others? Any others? What about his future prospects? What do you think his future prospects could be? Right? There's always a future, right? After he learned new skills, there's always a possibility of a new future for himself, right? So if you look at it, more opportunity. Somebody said, be curious, right? As it's saying, playing game, right? So positive mindset is what? What has he learned? The new processes actually taken over all the mundane tasks that he had to do, right? It's taken over all the boring things that he had to do. So that was a positive. Okay, that means what? He's able to focus on his core work, his core responsibility. So he has more time to do the things that he's supposed to be doing. Yeah. Now he's also saying there's a chance to learn how to use AI tools to enhance his job. Right now, and also what? You know, by going through all the new AI tools, it could ignite his interest in using AI in other areas as well. Okay, so those are the positives that someone like in David's situation could actually extract. Okay? So hopefully, when you are going through your own negative experience, make an effort to try and extract the positive experiences coming out. You will be able to see that, your shackles are undone. Okay? So hopefully you understand the process, right? Whenever you have a negative experience, look at what are the positives that could come out of this thing. Okay? Out of the whole way of looking at things. All right. Now, there's another technique I want to share with you. Okay? It is this notion of how you will be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I want to borrow these two disciplines, the skaters and the surfers. Now, scientists have found that people who skateboard and who surf are actually some of the most nimble people around. They can adapt very quickly. They are very comfortable with all the different things that are thrown at them. Okay, they have this mindset where they understand that they must have the ability to be flexible in everything that they are doing. So imagine if a wave comes and they have to judge the wave and adapt accordingly. So if a skateboarder, if there's an obstacle, he can either go around, or he jumps over it, or he climbs up around the obstacle in a different way. Okay, so inbuilt flexibility is so important. Now, if I translate this to the notion of your career, okay, I've recently come across this particular research, okay, which basically talks about a particular type of career called the protean career. Okay, so if you look at this, it says protean career is one who actively, constantly updates their career path in order to remain relevant to their work environment, right? So the protean signifies someone who is flexible, versatile, and highly adaptable. Okay, so what does this mean to your job, your career? Essentially, if you look at it, as someone who has a protean career, he is characterized by continuous sense of self-assessment, self-direction, and self-development. So he's continuously going around that process. And so he's able to pursue a lot of different opportunities. And he constantly redefines what success means to him. Okay? Later on, I'm actually going through with you a little exercise as to how you redefine your success. Okay, so stay tuned for that. Right? So this is an attitude, by the way. It was actually an article written by Dr. Timothy C. Okay, so this is an attitude in the way you look at change and how you adapt to change. And what does it mean? Once you have that attitude, it means that you can actually go in different directions if you want to. You can adapt to the things that's coming at you. You can move in different directions. You have the flexibility to do that. All right. So that mindset allows you that action. Okay. So the mindset is so important. So now I'm going to go through with you a particular process which many companies are actually using right now. And this process of dynamic planning is not new, but it actually came the development accelerated when the pandemic hit, because a lot of companies, rather than rely on the traditional way of goal setting and planning, they said, no, I cannot do the old way. I must have a new process where I can adapt and change whenever something happens. So they coined this term dynamic planning. Okay, so what is this? And how can you use this in your own way of coping with things that's coming to you? Okay. So firstly, if a crisis hits, how do you respond is very important, right? So you need to have the appropriate response, and needless to say, it should be a positive response. Okay, looking at things in a positive way. Then you start monitoring the situation. Okay, you start monitoring whether the change to you, what sort of adjustments you need to make. Okay, once you have determined that, then you start thinking, is this the new normal? Okay, is this the new normal? Does this mean that society behavior, the work process, the world of work is going to change, right? If so, if this is the new normal, then we have to have something new in place to cope with that new normal. Okay? Then we make the transition to adapt to that new normal, right? So hopefully the crisis will end, all right? But we still monitor the situation. Now, the best example I can give you as a company is actually Grab. Okay, Grab started before the pandemic, and they were focused very much on driving taxis and logistics and all that. When the pandemic hit, they had to adapt and change their business process, right? They went into food delivery, okay? Then they expanded now into delivering not only food but other items as well. Okay, and then they've also expanded to actually providing jobs for people at that time who were affected by the pandemic and who was looking for a way to earn a living. Okay, so they've been constantly adapting. Okay, and now they're saying that this is a new normal, and so they're probably going to have that part of the business still there, but they're probably looking at something new as well. Okay, so that is what companies are doing right now. So how does it then look at how do individuals use this technique? Okay, one thing you must understand when we are looking at dynamic planning, the thing that's underlying everything here is being focused on what matters. Sorry. Okay, so let's see how an individual like David can use this dynamic planning to help them cope with the uncertainty of change. Okay, so crisis for David was what? Crisis for David was the changes that's happening in the world of his company and his job. Okay, how he responds, right? He thinks, if we go back to the previous exercise of taking more positive view about things, right? More productive, okay? New skills and new promotions, okay? So great. Then he thinks, okay, I need to monitor the situation. How does he monitor? So he's really focused right now on making sure he works better with his colleagues. Okay, so whatever things coming on board, he says, oh, there are lots of things happening. I better see how I can work better with my colleagues to make sure the change goes smoothly. Okay. When a new normal hits, when David understands, wow, this is what it's going to be from now on, then he starts thinking, I better learn all the tools available to me. Okay, I better think about how I can use this in my job, right? And I better see how other new trends and new AI tools that's going to come on board, right, that can impact the way I do things. So I have to keep an eye out for this as well. Okay, so he is trying to cope with the new normal. He is trying to cope with the new normal. Okay, then what happens next? Okay, so now he's thinking, okay, in order for me to cope even better, once I get used to the idea of coping with the new AI tools and the way it's impacting my job, can I use what I've learned to transit into other areas like fintech? Can I use what I've learned to expand my network? So, do you see how you can do this? Okay, as an individual, all right? So, this process of dynamic planning, although it's done at a corporate level, I feel as an individual, we can actually adopt those strategies to the processes to be able to cope with things that's coming our way. Okay, so hopefully you'll find these particular steps interesting for you, so something that you can try out yourself whenever you see something happening for you. Okay, so let's take a look at prioritizing. The next bit, prioritizing. Okay, here, and I mentioned it earlier, is how we look at what is success to us. So we need to define and redefine what success means to us. Okay, so the first thing is what? First thing is we need to understand, what does success look like? What are the indicators of success? Right? So all of you may have some idea of what, when you are successful, what does it look like to you? Everybody is different. So you list it down. Okay? The other thing we need to look at is this. Once we are successful, how does it affect the people around us? How does it affect the people around us? Okay? Then the third item we need to look at is when we are successful, what kind of growth opportunities do we get when we are successful? How do we grow? How do we grow better? Okay? So 3 factors here. And underlying all this again, once you combine all this, you can find out what matters to you at the end of the day. What matters to you. Okay, so let's see how David does it. Let's see how David does it. Okay, so if I were to ask David the same question, what does success look like to you, David? He will probably say something like this, okay? I want to be appreciated by my colleagues and bosses. Okay? If I'm successful, I see my bosses, my colleagues appreciate me, I find that makes me feel good. Okay? I want to be able to grow my career path. That shows that I'm successful. I want to be able to move very smoothly to new roles. Okay? Because that's important to him as well, especially if he's a young guy. Okay? And then, I think many of us share this, he wants to have peace of mind. Okay? So here, you ask yourself, what are your success indicators? What are the signs that tell you you are successful? It could be as simple as I'm earning X dollars a month. Okay? Or it could be as simple as where you live. Okay? Those are signs of success to you. It's a very individual thing. So list this down. Okay. So now, how does it impact the people around David? How does it impact the people around David when he's successful that he listed out on here? Okay? So David will say, colleagues have confidence in me and in my competencies. So colleagues will keep saying, good job, David. You know, we like having you around. You're helping us a lot. Okay? He is also saying that, you know, when I'm successful, my family is contented and provided for. Okay? So to him, those are the signs, the impact success will have on the people around him. Okay. So then what are the growth areas? What are the growth areas? He's basically saying, oh, I've learned new skills that I can transfer to other situations. Okay. I have new areas to explore. This whole area of AI, which I've never thought about before. I want to grow along those lines. Right? And I find that once I learn all those new skills, I can help people in a new and different way. Okay? And when he looks at all these things, he basically could then summarize what matters to him is being able to be credible to the people around him and being able to express his competencies to everybody around him. So that's what matters to him. So, why don't you give this a try? Okay? After the workshop, list down what your key success indicators are. What are the signs that tell you you are successful? Okay? How your success impacts the people around you? Okay? And what does success mean to you in terms of the way you grow as a person? Okay? So that's how you would look at coping with all the different things that's happening to you. Okay. The next aspect I need to talk to you is really about support system. I think you all know, right? It's so important that we have a support structure, especially when we are undergoing very drastic changes. Who are the best people to seek support? What do you guys think? Who are the best people to seek support for yourself when you are undergoing crisis or change? Can you type in the chat box? Who do you think are the best people that are able to support you? What do you think? Family? Many people say family. Okay? Many people say family. Okay, close friends. Many people say family and close friends. Okay, mentors, I like that. Mentors from the same industry as well. Okay, great. So family, friends, mentors, right? But if you look at it, you could also seek support from communities who you are maybe doing this in the same job. So for example, if you're in the finance community, join those people, they can support you as well. Okay, associations, communities. All right. So there's a lot of support out there. We need to find these people. Okay. And the way we get support is also the way we give support as well. So we share our own experience, other people share, we learn from other people's experiences. So that's how support is given to everyone and each of us. Okay, so it is not an isolated thing. When we try to say, oh, I want support, it's not just you one way. It's a two-way thing. Okay, you receive, but you also give. All right, so always remember this. All right, so it is not about a one-way support system. Right, it is about how you support each other. That is so important. Okay, and my last message on this particular support item here is that don't wait until you need it. Develop it now. All right, don't wait until you need it. Okay, so hopefully you all understand how important this is. All right, so the three items, let me very quickly summarize the three items here. Okay, so first one, we embrace change. We need to make sure to look at change as an opportunity for growth, but we also need to have a process where we can adapt and change when adapt and move and be flexible when change hits us. Okay, having a protean mindset. Okay, as far as priorities are concerned, we need to make sure we redefine and look at what we feel success is and how it impacts the people around us and what sort of growth opportunities that give to us. Okay, and lastly, we have to then look at how we create our own support structure and how so important it is to be able to say, I have people who will push me through thick and thin. Okay, and so important that we start doing it now. Don't wait until we need it, because by the time we say I need support and you don't have it, it's probably a bit too late for you. All right, so develop your own support structure now. Okay, so that was the first part. That was the first part on how we prepare for any changes that's come on board. Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's take a 10-minute break and then we come back and then we're going to talk about the next part, which is how we actually cope with the change that's already hit us. Okay, and during that time, I will introduce to you Mr. Tan, who will then share with you experiences. Okay, so I see you guys in 10 minutes. All right, ciao. Okay, welcome back from your break. Hopefully you had a chance to have a good stretch, all right, and loosen up, and also at the same time think about what we discussed over the last 45 minutes or so and how we actually prepare to cope with the changes coming on board. Okay, so now for this next half an hour to 45 minutes again, we're going to talk about how then do we adapt to the changes that's already hit us. Okay, how do we adapt to the changes that's already hit us? Essentially what to do after a disruptive event has come into our lives. Okay, and obviously one of the things that we need to understand is that it works better if we are prepared for it using all the things that we just talked about, but essentially there are other things that we can do as well. Okay, there are other things that we can do as well. So let's see. Now is June holidays, right? I'm sure many of you have been traveling or are planning to travel. Okay, pleasure, work, whatever. Okay, have you ever been in a situation where you actually lost your luggage? Type in the chat box. Those of you who have experienced lost luggage, please type in the chat box. Yes, 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 yes. See, quite a few of us. Okay, I myself have. Then the question I ask you is this: when you lost your luggage, touch wood, what was your reaction? What did you do? Did you panic? Did you scream and shout and somebody say, hey, what happened to my luggage? Or did you, it's okay, I have insurance to cover, don't have to worry and all that. Esther said, shocked. Yeah, I mean, it is something that we don't expect right now. Okay, I've actually lost my luggage once. Okay, and it was not my fault. Somebody took it away. Somebody took it away from me. Okay, and I think it was a mistake because they thought it was their luggage. Okay, so what did I learn from this? Okay, essentially, if you look at it, we evaluate the things that's happened to us. Okay, if you're experiencing a certain disruption, we evaluate what's going on. Okay, how did I handle this? So, for example, when I lost my luggage, how did I handle it, or how am I going to handle this? Do I shout and scream? Do I go to the airport, the plane, and complain? Hey, you guys didn't provide security, or you just calmly and said, hey, it seems like someone has took my luggage. Where do I go and make a report, or what is the procedure for your airline? Okay, so calm and cool. Okay, then you think about it. Were there any positive outcomes? Actually, for me, if I can look at it positively, it's actually I got a good excuse to what? What do you guys think? If you lose your luggage, what is the positive thing that comes out? Anybody? You buy, right? You got a chance to buy. I don't know. Depending on your insurance, maybe you can actually buy quite a lot of new clothes and everything, right? So that is the positive out of the whole thing, right? Limited, but that is still a positive, right? You claim insurance and all that. Then the question is, after you've gone through that disruption, is there anything you can do differently? Is there anything you can do differently? So for me, ever since after that, I never had any experience in losing my luggage anymore because I did things differently. I think as you all would know, I basically made sure that my luggage was so unique that nobody else would dare touch it or think that it's theirs. So you can imagine what are the steps that I went to sort of differentiate my luggage from everybody else's. Huh? Okay, bright red ribbon. Okay, so this is a simple analogy, but if you think about it, you can actually apply it to the way we look at our own jobs. Okay, so for those of you who have lost your jobs or have lost your jobs recently or in the past, how did you handle it? How did you handle it? Okay, did you look at these 3 steps? What was there any positive outcomes? Did you do anything differently? Let me tell you my personal side of things. Okay, now, as many of you may have experienced, I actually went through retrenchment. Okay, and I went through retrenchment not once, not twice, but 3 times. Can you imagine that? Ass luck, right? Sorry, I'm not supposed to say bad word here, but I went through it 3 times. But the good thing here was that after the first time, the next 2 times was a piece of cake for me because I learned my lesson. Okay, why? Right? What were the positives that came out? If I look at the first time that I got retrenched, okay, I looked at it and said, hey, putting aside all the negative things, because at that time that was about almost 20 years ago. And in those days, retrenchment was like, oh, you got retrenched, must be something you did badly. But in fact, it wasn't. It was a business decision. But in any case, if you look at the positive side of things, okay, I had more time for my family. Okay, I was able to try new things. I broke my shackles and I gave myself permission to try different things. And those different things were basically pivoting to different situations, different careers and all that. And in fact, those of you, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you will see that actually I made a lot of pivots. And in most of those pivots, I actually did better and better. Okay? So we learn from even a negative experience like losing our jobs and retrenchment. We learn from it. And how can we learn from this? How did I learn from this? I basically developed what I call the 5R approach. Okay, so you can see the 5 R's here. Right? And I'll share with you each of those steps in 5R. And this is where I'm going to bring in Mr. Tan. Okay, after each step, I'm going to bring in what Mr. Tan, who is my client, did when he went through each of the R lessons. Okay, and just to give you a bit of background about Mr. Tan, which I think he will also share with you later on, right? Mr. Tan is was a one of my earlier clients actually. Okay, and by the time he came to me, he was actually out of work for over a year. Okay, but anyway, so I'm going to stop there and not say too much until Mr. Tang comes on board now. Huh? Okay, so let's talk about the first R. The first R, which is review. Okay, review. All right, so we review what's happened to us. What is the situation we are in now? We take a look at our own perception of that situation. You know, how do we look at that thing that happened to us? Yeah. And then we also see how is this impacting other people around us. So that's a review process. Okay, I want to share with you this little notion. Huh? How do you describe this glass? This glass of water. Can you type into the chat box? How do you describe this glass of water? Can you type into the chat box? How do you describe this glass of water? Anyone? Type into the chat box. Okay. Half full, very good. Anybody else? Anybody is half empty or not? It's okay, you know, if you say it's half empty, it's okay. Okay, I saw many of you say half full, which is great, Okay, I'm going to share with you a little video. In fact, this video is actually a 15-minute video about a TED Talk. Right? This TED Talk was given by a scientist who did some research on how people actually cope with negative and positive thinking. Okay, now the video I'm going to show you now is actually an edited version. So I've edited down the few key points. But if you have time, I suggest you go and take a look at that video to get the full flavor of it. Okay, but let me show you the edited version, and then later on we can come back to talk about what the implications of that research shows us. Okay.
So if you describe the glass as half full, this is called a gain frame because you're focusing on what's gained, then people like it. But if you describe the same glass as half empty, a loss frame, then people don't like it. But we wondered, what happens when you try to switch from thinking about it one way to thinking about it another way? Can people shift back and forth, or do they get stuck in one way of thinking about it? So notice what this means. Once the loss frame gets in there, it sticks. Is that our view of the world has a fundamental tendency to tilt toward the negative. It's pretty easy to go from good to bad, but far harder to shift from bad to good. We literally have to work harder to see the upside of things. And you can practice this. You can train your mind to do this better. There's research out of UC Davis showing that just writing for a few minutes each day about things that you're grateful for can dramatically boost your happiness and well-being and even your health. We can also rehearse good news and share it with others. We tend to think, right, that misery loves company, that venting will help get rid of our negative emotions, that we'll feel better if we just talk about how terrible our day was. And so we talk, and we talk, and we talk about the boss who's driving us crazy, and the friend who never called us back, and the meeting at work where every little thing that could go wrong did. But we forget to talk about the good stuff. And yet that's exactly where our minds need the most practice. Okay, but what happened today that was good? And so I tell him about the student who came up to me after class with this really interesting, insightful question. And I tell him about the friend who emailed me out of the blue this morning just to say hello. And somewhere in the telling, I start to smile. And I start to think that maybe my day was pretty decent after all. I think we can also work in our communities to focus on the upside. We can be more aware that bad tends to stick. One mean comment can stick with somebody all day, all week even. And bad tends to propagate itself, right? Somebody snaps at you and you snap back, and you snap at the next guy too. But what if the next time somebody snapped at you, you forgave them? What if the next time you had a really grumpy waitress, you left her an extra large tip? Our minds may be built to look for negative information and to hold on to it. But we can also retrain our minds if we put some effort into it and start to see that the glass may be a little more full than we initially thought.
Okay, so what are the implications of the research that she has done for us? Let's say normal lay people like us. Okay, essentially, if you think about it, if those of you who are looking at this glass as half empty, please don't be too hard on yourself, okay? Because the research actually shows that it is actually natural for a lot of us to straight away think about the negative things first. It's a natural occurrence. It is a natural occurrence. So please don't be too hard on yourself, okay? And really, in a sense, when we are stuck in a negative way of thinking, it's actually, it actually takes a lot of effort, conscious effort, to be able to convert it into a positive way of looking at things. But the good news is that you can do it, but you must consciously do it, okay? And really, it's really about focusing on what's good in the things around us, that's happening around us. So again, when I come back to the disruption that you are experiencing, okay, focus instead of the negative things, right? Exactly like what she said, although you're saying you're venting, okay, but by venting, you're still focusing on the negative things. Why not focus and think about, hey, although this bad thing has happened to me, but yet there are still some positive things I can look at, okay? And this little saying from Jack Ma, I find it so true, okay? Our mind is like a magnet. We attract things, okay? If you think of problems, you attract problems, right? If you think of solutions, solutions come to you, okay? How many times have you experienced, I know I've experienced many times, where you are so focused on bad things that's happened to you, it feels like one by one more and more bad things come to you. Have you ever experienced that? I know I have, okay? And I always keep telling, why is it all the bad things happening to me, all right? At first I didn't believe it, but then, and I kept seeing all these things where everybody was saying, actually, it's because you attract this. At first I thought it was, hocus pocus sort of thing. But actually, the way you think manifests in the way you interact with people, okay? And when you are negative, you interact with other people in a negative way. And when you interact with other people in a negative way, negative comes back to you as well. Okay? So give it a try. Think about this. It really happens. It really does happen. So please believe me. Okay? It really, really does happen. Okay? And a large part of the negative thinking is really about the language we use, the way we talk about not only ourselves, but the situation. So language is actually so important as well. So important as well. Okay? So again, here, some examples that you can sort of twist around. So if it is failure, the positive side of failure is what? It is maybe a temporary setback. Okay? What if you have a horrible experience? What can you say? Instead of saying a horrible experience, maybe you want to say, that was very challenging. That was very challenging. Okay? Instead of saying something is too difficult for you to do, something is too difficult for you to do, maybe what you can do is what? Say, I will try again. Like Edison, I will try again, try and try and try. Okay? The last one, why me? I'm sure all of you have thought about this, right? When something bad happens to you. Alamak, why this happened to me? Okay? How do we twist it around? How do we twist it around? Maybe we can say, oh, actually I can learn from this. Something bad happened to me, but I got a learning experience from this. Yeah? One of the primary focus I get my clients to look at when they are trying to reframe themselves to look at things in a positive way is to dive deep into looking at what they are good at. Don't focus on the negative things that happen to us, but focus on what they are good at. Okay? When this happens, when you get yourself to focus on what are the good things, what are the things that you can do well, okay, not only gives you confidence, but it also makes you understand that, hey, I can actually help a lot of people. I can help a lot of people. Okay? So, this is Mr. Tan. I mentioned him already. Okay? So, let me share with you what Mr. Tan has gone through and what was his thinking at this stage of review. Let's hear from Mr. Tan.
I was retrenched from my CFO job for over a year and felt ashamed. I avoided my friends and kept a distance from my family. I didn't realize that my behavior affected those that were closest to me, as I was too focused on myself. As I reviewed my situation again, I began to recognize that I had valuable skills and experiences. The retrenchment was not something personal, but a business decision by the company, even though I did not agree with it. But I soon saw that it was not helpful to keep focusing on this negative thinking, and I needed to move forward.
Okay, this particular stage took a lot of effort for both of us to work through. Okay, like he mentioned, by the time he came to me, he was actually already out of work for over 12 months already. So a lot of the negativity was actually still in his head. So it took a lot of effort for us to actually sort of work around that and try and get his mind focused on a different thing. Okay, so hopefully you got something out of that. All right, so let's take a look at the next one, okay, which is redirect. Redirect. So what are you going to redirect yourself to? Okay, away from the negative things that's happened to you, what do you look at them? All right, so some suggestions here. A lot of us have got energies. Okay, when we are focused on something, we put the energy into that area. Okay, so if we are focused on the negative things, we tend to focus a lot of our energies on that negative. Why don't we focus on something else? Redirect the energy to something else. Do something that allows us to expand the energy. And a lot of time, at the same time, it actually helps our health as well, which I'll illustrate to you in a little while. Okay, and this is also a really good time for us to redirect and look at things that we never had a chance to do before, right? Whether it's new interest areas, new ways of doing things and all that. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Tan again. What did he do to look at things in a different way? Yeah?
I realized that in my pursuit of my career, I neglected my family and allowed my health to deteriorate. I needed to refocus again. My family is the most important thing to me, and I want to show this in my actions too. I also returned to a past love: running and cycling. I began to exercise more and felt so good about this. Now, I also had the time to look into an area which was new and exciting to me: the area of fintech. I wanted to find out if I could transit into this area.
Right. So you see, Mr. Tan, okay, he redirected his energies to doing something new, something active, and he also focused more on the people that matters to him. Okay, so he was redirecting his focus. Okay. The next R, reconnecting. How would you reconnect? Obviously, the people that matters to you, those your loved ones, okay? But you can also reconnect back to society, to your environment. And these two, what I mean is people in your circle. For example, if you are a finance person, there's a finance community you can gather around, okay? Environment, being aware of what's happening around you, the situation, all right? Because sometimes when you're so caught up in other things, you forget about the situation, the environment, the place that you are in, you know? I mean, the saying goes, stop and smell the roses could be applicable here, right? But in essence, it's about looking at things around you, reconnecting with things around you. But what is very important when you are reconnecting with other people, your loved ones, one key thing here is that encourage people to give you feedback. Encourage people to give you feedback, okay? And usually you want to get feedback from people you trust, correct or not? All right? So, and usually these are close friends, very good colleagues, or people in your family circle, okay? So they will probably be the ones that give you really good and positive and constructive inputs into the situation that you are facing now, okay? And from there, maybe they will give you options as well, or you develop options based on their inputs, okay? And then you start thinking about, how can I prevent the same thing from happening again, right? So, reconnecting. So let's take a look at what Mr. Tan did.
One of the first things I did was to reconnect with people I lost touch with, not to ask for a job, but to just rebuild long-lost connections. This is something I should have done long ago, and not just until now. Don't make that same mistake. I also reached out to my larger family circle. I recall the happy times when we would all gather as a larger family and catch up with those near and dear to me. I can now see that they are my strongest support network. As a CFO, I also made sure I touched base with the finance community. This allowed me to catch up on latest trends and reignite my reputation in this circle. Again, this is something I should have done long ago. It was also here that I connected with others who were involved in the area of fintech.
So you can see here, Mr. Tan actually went out of his way to reconnect. Right? He reached out to not only the people that he knew, but he also reached out to people that he wanted to get to know. Right? So this takes effort. So for you, this is something that you need to put effort into. Okay. So let's take a look at the next R, which is reprioritize. Reprioritize. So what do we mean by this? You may have got a hint of the what I mean is basically you take a look at what's important to you. You look at what are the activities that you are doing, right? Whether it is, as simple as maybe, for example, right now you go on holiday 4 times a year, or you go for high-class restaurants, but now maybe you need to recalibrate, okay? You need to look at, how long can you sustain your current situation, right? You need to be aware of this, okay? So underlying all this again is really about moving forward, accepting the situation and say, okay, this has happened to me, let's move on. Okay, so again, same thing. Mr. Tan did a lot of work in here, and this is what he has to say.
My immediate family became my focus. My kids are almost grown up, and I needed to catch up with lost years. It was tough at the beginning, but it's worth it. My parents were also getting on, and being the only child, I need to take responsibility for their later years now. In fact, this became a major focus for me. Being unemployed, I also had to relook at how we can manage our expenses better. This was a family effort, and I am so thankful that I have a supportive wife and children. Learning about fintech has also become an exciting journey. I soon realized that I could play a major part in this area, and this motivated me no end. I also wanted to make sure I led a healthy lifestyle in all of this. Exercising and a good diet gave me renewed energy and hope.
So you can see again the trend. Hopefully you get the message here. Actually, when you want to cope with something, it is not a passive activity. It is something that you have to consciously do. Okay? So the next R, which is reframing. Looking at things in a different way. Looking at things in a different way. Right? So we know the old saying that there's always a silver lining to a dark cloud. Okay? But we also need to understand what can we learn from this situation. And from there, hopefully we get a certain degree of confidence in our own ability as well. Okay? So, again, what did Mr. Tan do?
One of the biggest positives from this experience was the ability for me to do things which I could not do before. I had time, and I had the energy to try out new things and learn new knowledge. This has enriched me so much, and my happiness also made my family happy for me. Of course, I still had to put food on the table, but learning to fall and get up made me stronger. It's also wonderful to be able to meet new people from the activities I am doing now. Many of these are not work-related, and I feel good about this as it lets me see a world beyond just the closet of my job or career. This expanded universe and the support I have received has also given me immense confidence to not only bounce back, but also believe in myself and my abilities. Thank you.
So you can see here really, what Mr. Tan did was really by reaching out to other people, the people around him, by really looking at his situation and really looking at what he can do, what his competencies are, what is within his control. The end result was that he actually gained a lot of confidence in himself. After more than 12 months of in a sense, I won't call it depression, but he was really down on himself. But as he turned around, right, looked at the things in a very different way, and when he reached out to people, he got the support, and that support also gave him the opportunity to look at things in a very different way about himself and his ability to contribute. So he regained a lot of trust in himself. Okay, so I hope that when you see all this, this is a summary of the 5 steps, the 5 R's, right? If you want, you can take a screenshot of this. Essentially, it is just a framework, a very simple framework that I have developed and I use with my clients. And this framework was essentially derived from my own personal experience as to how I coped with it. And it was good that these activities and this structured way of approaching things, I was able to help a lot of people as well. So hopefully you get something out of this. Okay, so hopefully if you want to take a screenshot of this, and this is also another screenshot of basically what Mr. Tan did in each step. So you can take a look there as well. So soon after this, after connecting with a lot of people in the marketplace, he actually found a new senior finance person role, but he did it in a new area, which was fintech. Okay, so this is something that and he came to terms with it because at his age, at that time he was in his early 50s. Okay, so he was thinking that is my next step for me. So that was good. Right? I went through the 5 R's. Hopefully you got a sense of the different activities that you can do, and hopefully Mr. Tan's situation gave you some insight as to how it could apply to your own situation as well. Okay. So let me sort of then summarize the whole last 45 minutes, or maybe, in fact, it's 3:30 now, okay? So last 1.5 hours or so. And then from there, if there's any bigger questions we have, you can answer this, all right? So let's take a look at the whole thing now, okay? So here, the last 1.5 hours, I basically discussed these 2 aspects, okay? What were these 2 aspects? If I can just move on to here. So when I'm preparing for change, okay, I have to understand that change is an opportunity, it's not a constraint. Okay, we have to look at it that way. Right? We have to focus on what's important and how change impacts this, and then we need to make adjustments. Right? We have to develop a support structure. Definitely, we have to develop a support structure. Okay, so hopefully this is okay with you. Let's hear from David. David, who is like a fellow participant to you, let's see what his takeaways were. Right?
Yes, we need to be prepared for changes. I realized my fears about my job was blinding me to the great potential technology has for my career. By looking at what is important for me has helped me realize that I can lean on other opportunities for growth. And certainly having a strong support system can be so helpful to allow us to cope.
Okay, so that was David's takeaway for this particular section on how we prepare for change. If I look at then the next section, how do we cope with the change that's happened to us? Okay, essentially, if you look at it, it's really very important for us to review the situation and really focus on what's happening now, but the positives and what we can control. That is so important. Don't focus on things that we can't control. Okay? Then we need to find a way to move forward. Hopefully the 5R process that I shared with you gives you some idea of how you can move forward. Right? Redirection is so important here, because rather than focusing on the bad things, can we redirect our energies, our focus onto things that are more positive, things that are within our control. Right? And therefore, we rely and leverage on our support system, the people around us who will be able to motivate us, who will be able to push us forward or grab us if we fall back again. Okay? So here again, if I look at what David is getting out of this whole thing, let me just see. Okay.
Looking at my current situation, I can see that I need to ensure I have the competencies to ride on the wave of the changes my company is planning. I also see an opportunity for me to help my colleagues grow in this area as well, so that we can be a greater team. My next step is now to identify skills I need to learn, and reach out to others who have been on the same path and learn from them.
Okay, so hopefully, some of your takeaways are similar, or maybe you have slightly different ones, but at least you get some takeaways from this session itself, right? As far as this particular portion is concerned. And this, at the end of those two categories, hopefully by now, you get a sense of what sort of frame of mind or mindset you need to have to embrace the changes that will happen, has happened. Okay, you need to be able to evaluate, understand all the changes that's coming on board, and anticipate future changes. Right? I'm not asking you to be able to forecast the crystal ball, but at least once you accept that changes are coming, you put in the effort to understand what are the implications and then what is moving forward for you, right? Then you have strategies, right, and techniques to be able to cope with the potential changes that's coming. So before we sort of go for this doing the survey, I just want to sort of share with you the next. Well, let me just push this one out. Okay, the next schedule of workshops that I have. Yeah. So you can see from here, right, 26 July is the next one. And actually 26 July is actually quite exciting for me as well, because this is the first time I'm doing this in a workshop. It's about career confidence after 40. Okay, strategies to overcome career concern. So those of you who are over 40, maybe this is something that you want to take a look at. All right. And then on the 29th of August is actually a live full-day workshop in Institute of Adult Learning. So if you're interested, I already did one last month. I think a few people came. So hopefully, you guys can tell the others that was a good experience for you, and then all that. Yeah. So those are the workshops. Okay. Okay. Eileen asked, if it's below 40, would it be relevant for you? By all means, join in. I mean, all of us will reach 40 at some point sooner or later, right? Okay. All right. So how you go for the workshops is basically the same process that you did when you registered for this workshop. Okay. All right. So let me then share with you the survey. Hopefully you can help me fill up this survey. Let me just box block. I'm going to give you a few minutes to fill this up. But while you are filling this up, I want to share with you a video by this lady. Huh? You all know her? Huh? So she acted very recently, right? She's been in the news quite a lot. Huh? So she did a speech in Harvard University recently. Okay, she did a speech in Harvard University recently, and I thought it was really, really relevant to the topic that we are talking about today, that we talked about today. It is about how we move forward in our careers, how we cope with all the difficulties that come in. Okay, so her little speech was 15 minutes long, but I've edited it down to about 3 minutes for you to take a look at the key points there. Right, then later on I'll recap that as well for you guys. All right, so while you're filling up the survey, you can take a look at this video, and then we'll round off the whole session itself. Yeah. Okay, let me just do this.
How to Survive the Fall in 3 Easy Steps by Michelle Yeoh. The first one is pretty obvious, but not always easy. Stay loose. When falling, the tendency is to tighten up to brace for impact. But in truth, the safest thing one can do is remain calm, even curious about the shifting world around you. Which leads me to my second piece of advice. Know your limits. Although understanding what you can do is essential, understanding what you can't do is pretty important too. This works on 2 levels, both internally and externally. Internally, knowing your limits keep you humble, motivated, and focused on a goal to point your finger toward. Externally, knowing the limits that are set for you by others give you a place to point a different finger. I am talking about the middle one. In other words, limitations set by yourself give you boundaries to respect, but limitations set by others give you boundaries to bust through. But with every nick and scratch and bruise and fractured vertebrae, I came back better and braver. Learning how to fall teaches you how to land, and learning to land gives you the courage to jump higher. Because our limitations become our challenges, and there is nothing like a challenge to keep you working, striving, and pushing for more. Every demeaning role I was offered, every rejection I was handed, and every time someone underestimated me, I found energy and renewed motivation. This brings me to the third and final tip. Find your people. Life is not always a zero-sum game. For every winner, there doesn't have to be a loser. In fact, most success stories are less about competition and more about collaboration. The truth is, I could not have done any of this alone. My achievements are the results of those around me who offered and continue to offer support and belief. There are times where, as much as I don't want to let myself down, I don't want to let them down even more. The prerequisite to change is empathy. Seeing through other people's perspective activates our compassion, which becomes the driving force for real-world demonstrable action. Compassion is the ultimate superpower within us. When you are leaping without a safety net, people become your safety net, and you become theirs. So, those are my tips. Stay loose, know your limits, and find your people.
Okay. But I just wanted to encapsulate what Michelle Yeoh mentioned here. Essentially, you know, how she coped with all the difficulties that she and experienced were basically encapsulated in a few key points here. She said, you know, stay loose, stay flexible, okay? Don't get caught up in all the negativity, right? Know what you can do and what you can't do, but know what you can do and what you can't do is purely internal. When somebody tells you you can't do something, is a reason for you to bust through that barrier, okay? And also, you know, she was also emphasizing the fact that she had people who helped her, motivated her. So I felt that these were all the same stuff that I actually mentioned to you for the last couple of hours or so. So hopefully that sort of emphasizes the point. Okay, so I can see here now that there are still few people here hanging around. So I'm going to just round off by sharing with you some slides about how you can continue to engage with me if you so wish. And for those of you who are new to me, I also will give you a process as to how you can actually get hold of this, the video recording of this workshop. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do now. All right, so as you know, the video is recorded, all right, and I'm going to take about a week or so to edit the video, edit out the Q&As, and then I'm going to send it out to my database, okay? And if you want to be on the database to receive the video, please fill up the form in the links that I'm going to put into the chat box now, okay? So go to that link in the chat box, all right? Fill up your details so that I can send you the link, okay? And I'm only going to send you in the form of a newsletter. So I'm going to write only the newsletter maybe once a month, okay? Now, and if you don't want any more of that newsletter, by all means, you can unsubscribe very easily. But I need you to fill this up so that it tells me you give me permission to send something to you. So this is a PDPA process, okay? So that's how you'll get hold of the video itself. Oh, by the way, just for those of you who are still around and who have been with me before, my next newsletter will actually contain something different, because I noticed that I've been getting a lot of questions from all of you, my workshop participants, about, you know, all the different things that's happening around the world and how they can cope. So I'm going to try and capture that into the next newsletter from then onwards. Okay, so stay tuned for that. All right, so the rest of you who are sort of interested in sort of connecting up with me, okay, various stages to do this. Obviously, the first one is very easily, you know, email me. You can go to my LinkedIn profile, or you can go to my website. You can see all the things down there. All right, and also, you know, you can go to the YouTube channel. You can see up there, or my Facebook group. Like I mentioned earlier on, my YouTube channel contains recordings, the latest versions of the workshop recordings, because many of the topics are repeated. So I don't put in the old ones, I only put in the latest versions. Okay, so you can go to the workshop, the YouTube channel, and take a look at those. Today's video, I will not publicize it first. I will only send it to people in my database. Okay, only about maybe 3 to 4 weeks later, then I would sort of highlight that video and publish it to the world. Okay, so if you want to get first hand about today's workshop, you need to be on the mailing list. Okay, all right. Those of you who are keen to understand more about the coaching services I give, I basically do coaching in packages. So these are the 3 packages I do: hidden job market, career redesign, and then some job application accelerators. So if you want, you can go to my website to take a look at it for more information. Okay. Those of you who are interested in being career coaches yourselves, okay, so I conduct classes for this. My classes allow my participants, my students, to actually get 2 international credentials. So this is different from the local Singapore WSG coach training. Okay, it is a training which allows you to get international credentials. But you might say, do I need international credentials? That's your decision. Okay, people who come to me are basically those who say, I want something that's recognized internationally, or I want to, and so therefore they come to me. And there are only a handful of people that conduct this course. And basically my differentiation here is that I conduct my classes in very small numbers, maximum 6 people, whereas other classes tend to be quite big. Mine is very small. Okay, but most of my classes are actually one-to-one. I have a lot of people who ask for one-to-one because when they do one-to-one classes, I can customize the content for them. Okay, so again, you can take a look at that in the website, or you can email me to inquire more. All right. Okay, so I guess the reason you are here today is really to have an understanding of how to cope with all the changes coming to your life. Okay, and some of you have mentioned fear as the underlying restriction for you to move ahead. Now, being fearful is okay. All of us can be fearful. All right, being fearful, it doesn't mean that, you know, when someone is brave, it's not scared. He doesn't have fear. All right, someone is brave, someone demonstrates courage, is that despite the fear, they still move ahead. That is the key thing here. That is the key thing here. So you can see here, you know, there are different types of courage, and I hope that, you know, what I shared with you gave you in some way some degree of confidence that you can overcome whatever is holding you back to cope with all the difficulties and changes that you are currently facing right now. Okay, so that's my short message. Okay. It's been my pleasure over these last 2 hours to share with you my thoughts, my experiences on this whole notion of how you adapt and cope with all the changes coming on board. I feel that this is a very important aspect, a skill that we all need to learn, and hopefully I gave my 2 cents worth to you. All right, so I wish you all good luck. Okay, take care of yourself. Although I always say, you know, even though the major news about the COVID is gone, but it is still there. So be careful, be thankful, be kind. Okay, thank you everyone. Keep in touch. All right, I'll see you soon. Ciao.